beautifully. Now, my 2 pens, all right, my 2 pens, really inky pens. That's the most important factor, is having an inky pen. We're going to be working one line at a time, okay? We're going to be working one line at a time, and you're going to see what I mean when I do this. So, I'm going to charge up my pen. Now, I actually am a little bit messy in my studio, so I'm going to charge up my pen. And as you can see, a lot of ink comes out of these pens, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one line at a time, and you're going to see the blotted line process. So I'm going to draw straight over the top of my image, and I'm going to press it down, not too hard. And what you'll see is it starts to transfer. Now, I had a lot of ink on that pen, so I want to make sure I'm just getting some of the ink off. And what you'll see is, as I build this up, one line at a time, I can start to create quite a neat print. Now it's in reverse, and as you can see, that was his forehead and that was his nose. So I'm going to keep adding stuff on. Let's put his eyebrow on. And again, I'm just pressing down exactly where his eyebrow was. Let's get some of this ink off of this pen. Okay, and I'm going to keep adding one line at a time, closing my hinge and pressing down really gently, and I'm transferring the ink from the magazine page across. Now you can see, look, it's quite interesting really. You can start to see the form, his eyebrow, his nose, and the bit of the mouth I put in. Let's give that bit of a clean down again. Now, the eyes and the nose are really tricky, all right? It's really tricky, and that's why I've started with this bit first, because I want to show you the harder bits first, and as you become more confident, we can work a little bit quicker, okay? We can work a little bit quicker. So there is never a rush. So I am going to do one line at a time. I put on a really small section there of his eye. And I'm just transferring it over. Hinge. Now look, you're starting to get the form of a human face. Now we had a big splatty bit there. That's okay, because that's part of blotted line. But we also had like a broken up line for the nose, and that's great as well. That's part of the process really. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that strange, broken and unusual line. You've got to remember, if you've got a very inky pen, you just want to keep getting the paint off of it. You don't want too much paint transferring, and you definitely don't want to press down too hard on your magazine page, okay? So let's go for the next bit. Bottom of the mouth and a bit of the chin. And as you can see, I'm just being super gentle. I'm putting one line on at a time to transfer it. And as you can see, we're starting to get the form of that face. Now I can be a bit more defined here. I'll put a bit more of his chin on. Okay, just transferring gently. Okay, so we're doing all right, we're getting there. Let's put a bit more of his mouth on now. And again, it's a slow process, but your finished result will look absolutely great. So we've got a little bit of his head forming there. Now to give it a bit more definition, to make it look more like a head, let's get some of his hairline on. That's really going to give it some shape now. And as you can see, it was just one line, not too much ink. There we go. Okay, let's give this pen just to get a little bit of the ink off of it. So, again, keeping in my one line at a time method, really delicately putting on the ear. Don't want to over ink things like that, these small details. It's a bit easier when you come to larger lines, but the small details like the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ear of your image, they're where the detail is. That's what's really going to make it work. There we go, we've got a little bit of his ear. Let's just put in a little bit more, just to make it a bit more ear-like. Now, at the moment, he's still looking a little bit nuts. He's still looking a little bit crazy, okay? But the more we add to it, the more defined it will be. So look, we've started to get a little bit more of a human face happening here. And again, you can see that broken line. You can see that printed line because we're printing straight from this image straight across, all right? So let's start working a little bit with his hair, all right? So I'm going to add in his parting. Adding in his parting. This is going to define the top of his head a lot more now. And then the top part of his head. And again, it's one line at a time. I'm saying it a lot, but it's definitely the process. Okay. So we've got some of that. We're going to put detail in his hair a little bit later on, but we're going to just keep going, getting the shape, all right? We're going to keep going, getting the shape, and then we'll move on to the lady in the process. But let's just get him sorted out as much as we can first. Also wanted to show you how quick this is to create an image. All right, still going. Okay, so we've got like a man's head really formed here. We'll get some more of the detail at the back of the hair on, I think, here. Great. Now, there's loads of detail we're missing from the hair, but we're going to come back to that at the end because that's going to be really defined with our colours that we're going to use, our watercolours we're going to use later. So let's just put on his shirt collar and his tie and the rest of his jacket, I think, and that will do, and we'll move on to the woman next. So let's start with his collar of his shirt. I'm going to put that on like that. Hopefully you're having a success at home with your image that you're working on. Remember my first line was really bulky, really blurry. It's kind of cool because it kind of defines his head a little bit. And when we add colour, it's going to change it again because you're going to be able to define certain areas. But if you are getting splatty lines, just work with them. And if you're getting broken up lines like we're getting here, that's fine as well. That's what we want. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how we can either change that or work with it more later on as we go. Right, let's get his tie on because he's smart, this guy. He's got a tie on. So there's the knot. And as you can see, when I'm pressing down, I'm just using the tip of my finger. I'm focusing where the ink was put to get it printed. Okay, there's his knot of his tie. Now, we don't want to blur her hand. So I'm just going to put that on like that and leave the gap for her hand. Because we're going to put that on in a bit. Another fiddly bit of the hand. But we're working with other areas first. Hopefully everyone's doing all right with this. So let's just get the back of his jacket on. Okay. Now, we're really starting to take shape here now. Yeah, look at that. And then let's get his collar on down to her thumb. Again, don't be careful how much ink you're putting on it. Just be very cautious. You kind of get used to it after a while. I've definitely got a bit more used to this process myself whilst I'm doing it, and hopefully you will be now. Remember, take your time though. No big rush. All right. Okay, so look, we're getting it defined. That's kind of good.